can connect authors with our readers. So I want to thank you so much for supporting us and watching this event. We would further love it if you support us and support our authors by making sure to click this button down below here, this support this event, buy the book here button. It will link you to both of our authors' books on our website at thirdplacebooks.com. We would love it if you support this by purchasing their wonderful books. While you are on our website, I also encourage you to check out some of our other author events on our events calendar. We've been hosting a lot of different author events over these past few months from all across the literary spectrum. Everything from mystery authors to literary fiction to some sports journalism author events. Tomorrow night we have a sci-fi author, Simon Stephen, conversation with Nancy Pearl. So we're all across the literary spectrum, so with so many different events. So I want to make sure you take a look at our events calendar and stay in tune with what's going on with us. We also do ship all of our books across the country. So make sure if you are purchasing, you have that option to have your book shipped to you. But I'm also happy to announce that all 3 of our store locations are in fact open for customer browsing, and you are able to pick up our authors' books in our stores. It's been so great to see customers inside the bookstores once again browsing the shelves. It's been great talking with customers about books once again. So I encourage you to please make sure to support our authors and buy their books with us. I'd also like to remind you that we would love it if you all stay engaged with our authors during this event tonight, and make sure you ask a question. We have this little function down below here on the screen, the Ask a Question function. You can also upvote your favorite questions. We will have time, hopefully, to get through most of your questions that you have for our authors tonight. So please stay engaged with what's going on here. Without further ado, I am very excited to be hosting this virtual event for author Yamile Saied Méndez in celebration of her recently released YA novel. It's an Argentine American who loves meteor showers, summer, astrology, and pizza. She joins us tonight from Utah, where she lives with her Puerto Rican husband and their 5 kids, 2
Are you there, Cam?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Looks like he's having some connection.
Okay, I get so paranoid that it's me because my internet is horrible.
I was kind of worried it was me too, so I was just sort of smiling and just like...
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I love this active chat that's going. It's great.
It's fantastic. Cam and I were just saying how we wish we could meet everybody in person tonight. I've only been to Seattle once, and I loved it so much. And I hear it's beautiful this time of the year, in spite of the smoke, right? But I wish we could be there in person. But I mean, I love technology that even in these times, it allows us to connect and celebrate books and authors and indie bookstores.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually been to Salt Lake once and like was hoping I would get to explore a little bit more of Utah, but what I did see of it was really, really wonderful. So,
oh, you'll have to come and visit us again soon. I'll take you all over the place. I've lived in Utah for a long time, and I'm in love with this place. It's like, if you're an outdoorsy person, it's beautiful, beautiful, like a playground. I don't ski, I don't do extreme sports, and I still enjoy it.
Nice. Yeah. I think I moved to Washington, it'll be 4 years ago in November. And so that's when I moved to Seattle from LA. So I went from being this like city girl to being like, oh my God, look at the trees. Like, you know,
Yes.
by the nature. So yeah, Utah sounds wonderful. I've definitely grown to love the greenery.
It's a gorgeous place.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Do you want to read first, or do you want to? I do have a couple of questions for you myself because I'm greedy and like want to talk to you all the time. But yeah, I do have some questions for you if you would like. Yeah.
What we can do is I can tell everybody who might not be familiar with Foodia a little bit about the book and read a couple of pages. Originally, I thought I would just read from the first chapter again. And I've been having this virtual tour. So, but I thought, why don't I just continue from where I left yesterday? People are curious. You can follow me around my events throughout these next few days and continue the read aloud. And then we can do the questions. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, let's hear it.
Very good. So I'll show you the cover of Furia. I'm just in love with this beautiful, beautiful cover that I was so fortunate to get from the story of my heart. The artist is Rachel Baker, and she did an amazing job bringing to life the girl that has lived in my mind for so many years. Yeah. And I wish I had a copy with the Reese Witherspoon Book Club still. I have not seen it in person yet, so I'm hoping that I will get my copy in the mail soon. And that has been something super exciting to reveal on launch day. So it's been a whirlwind of emotion, and I'm just so humbled and touched that my story is reaching a wider audience maybe than it would have in other circumstances. And Furia is set in Rosario, Argentina, where I was born and raised. I came to the States when I was 19 to go to college, but even though I've lived away from my country for a long time, my heart is still there. So when I started writing, the first thing, Camila just was born as she's right now in the book, although the story has gone through so many revisions and iterations and titles. But as I grew as a person, so has Camila grown. And Foodia is a story about a girl who loves soccer, which we call football in Argentina. And Rosario, my city, is known for exporting soccer players. And one of the, arguably the best soccer player of all time, Leo Messi, was born in my dad's neighborhood, actually, the neighborhood where I was born to. Wow. But the players that get exported are always men. It's never the women. And even as a young girl growing up in the 80s and 90s, I was not allowed to play. We were not encouraged at all. It was ladylike. And the allowed sports for girls were field hockey and volleyball and dance. But my family was a working class family, and we didn't have the resources for the sports that require more resources. And so with soccer, you just need a ball and kids to play, and we were not even allowed that. So when I thought about writing a story set in Rosario, I wanted to subvert that stereotype of the boy who wants to rise and become a professional player. And I thought, why not a girl? And that was my dream as a kid, to be able to play this beautiful game that I love. And that's how she was born. And so the story follows her journey as she tries to become a professional soccer player. She plays in an all-girl league, and her team has this amazing opportunity. And just when things are starting to work out, the love of her life, a childhood friend, comes back into the picture. And this boy is a superstar playing soccer in Juventus in Italy. And it's just an example of how sometimes beautiful things can still wreck your life. And even if you're not a fan of soccer, I feel Camila's journey will resonate with you, because it's just a story. It's a traditional coming of age story about a girl trying to break away from societal norms and being told what to do. Yeah. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and read a couple of pages, and then we can start our conversation.
Awesome.
So in the first couple of pages, we meet Camila, and she's with her mother, and she kind of tells us a little bit of where her family has come from to Argentina. So her family is a family of immigrants that came from Spain, Palestine, and Andalusia, and Russia even. And she also she mentions her indigenous family tree. She mentions a great-great-grandmother who came from Brazil to Argentina seeking freedom, and Camila is always being told that she is a lot like this great-great-grandmother because she never does what she's told. So she has this secret. She's about to go out and play into this championship game that her mother cannot know about. And at the same time, the local team, Rosario Central, is playing the opener season game, and her brother is a player in that team. But nobody knows that she's about to go and play the game that can change her life. So she leaves her house, and we're in her neighborhood. And it says, "The neighbor's music, mi gente, set a reggaeton rhythm for my pounding feet. I took every shortcut between the cinder block buildings and shacks in 7 de septiembre, our barrio. By the time I made it to the bus stop, I couldn't hear the music anymore, but the pam-pam beat still resonated inside me. The 142 bus turned the corner just after I checked my watch, 2:40. You're on time. I gave the driver a grateful smile, and I scanned my student card on the reader, and when it beeped, I thanked La Virgencita. I couldn't really afford to spend money on the fare, but the game field in Parque Irigoyen was too far away to walk. Well, you're lucky, the driver said. This is the emergency services bus for Central's opener. Most scoundrels are already at El Gigante, but I'm supporting from here. He smiled, showing me the blue and yellow jersey peeking out from under his warm blue button-up. You heading there? I didn't want to give him an excuse to get too friendly, so I shrugged and found the seat. The shiny black leather was cracked with yellowish stuffing peeking out, but it was far enough from both the middle-aged couple making out in the back and the man leering at me on the right. The bus gathered speed and left El Barrio. The drone of the engine and the warmth of the heater lulled me as I gazed out the window at the still naked August trees and the flocks of birds who hadn't made the flight north for warmer weather. After a brief stop on Circunvalación, I felt something touch my leg, a card with a picture of La Difunta Correa, the patron saint of impossible things. The paper was yellowing and a corner was bent. I looked up to see the flash of a young boy's crooked smile as he walked the length of the bus, giving out estampitas, saint cards, hoping for small donations. In spite of attending a Catholic school since 3rd grade, I'd never been particularly religious, but I recognized La Difunta, the image of a dead mother still breastfeeding her baby in a beam of divine sunshine had always mesmerized me. Sometime during the chaotic post-colonial years in the mid-1800s, the army had taken La Difunta's husband to fatten up its ranks. Heartbroken, she'd carried their infant son and followed her husband through the sierras and the desert until she died of thirst. When 2 drovers found her body, her child was still alive, suckling from her breast. Ever since, miracles have been attributed to her. She isn't officially a saint, but shrines to La Difunta dot Argentina's roads, encircled by bottles of water, the offering and payment for her favors. My conscience reminded me of all my lies, of the miracle my team would need to win the championship today. The sadness in the boy's hunched shoulders prickled my heart. I rummaged in my pocket for some money. There wasn't much he could get with 50 pesos, but it was all I had. Gracias, he said. May La Difunta bless you. I held up the estampita and asked, will this really work? He shrugged, but when he smiled, a dimple popped his cheek. What can you lose, eh? He couldn't have been more than 10, but he was already old. No one else took an estampita or gave him money, and he sent me another smile before he stepped off the bus. The engine's roar couldn't drown out the frantic muttering in my head. Today might be the last day I played with my team. No legs would be fast enough to give us victory. We needed a miracle. I glanced down at the estampita and said La Difunta, a silent prayer for a future in which I could play football and be free. What could I lose, eh? The end.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Gosh, you have such a pleasant, just reading voice that it's like, and then to hear this and like know it's your words. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Thank you. I was telling somebody else today that I feel like I go into my motherly bedtime story voice. I have 5 children, and I have volunteer at the school with the reading time, so it's an easy place to go to. And
Well, that's very cool.
Thanks.
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, like blew my mind. Congratulations on just first of all book release. Second, Reese's book club. Like when you found out, like how loud did you scream? How much did you freak out?
Well, when I found out, I couldn't really scream because it was a Zoom meeting with my editor. She had said that she had some fun news to share. So I thought it would be just my editor and my agent. And in fact, my 8-year-old son had given me this mask of a cow to wear in my Zoom meeting. And I kept it on the side, and I thought, it's just Elise and Sarah and Linda. But then I saw that a lot of people from Algonquin Rang readers were popping into the screen, and I thought, oh, what's going on? What did I do? And so then Elise was super smiley, and she broke the news. And I guess I go into 2 modes, flat or freeze, and I just froze.
Yeah.
And I'm happy I did. And then my agent called me, and we were super excited, but still it hadn't really sunk in. And then that night, I remember just sitting on my bed and thinking, oh my gosh, what just happened? And then I couldn't sleep that night.
Yeah.
I was just going a million miles an hour.
I would have been just hyperventilating, like walking back and forth across my very small apartment. It would have been...
No, but every time I thought about a lunch day on Tuesday coming closer, I would get butterflies in my stomach, and I would get this anxiousness. But it was a good kind of anxiousness, like when you are already anticipating the roller coaster drop. And that was fantastic.
Well, yes, definitely. Congratulations on that. And has any of your family read the book?
Yes, my girls started reading it. My 8th grader texted me on the 2nd day of school, and she's like, this is kind of good. She was reading an arc, and I'm like, I'm so happy to hear. So thank you very much. And so that was very wonderful. And it's super funny because when I started writing Foodia, my children were all babies. I have 5 kids, but my first 4 are about a year and a half apart from each other. So they were all little babies, like little chicks, and I would put them in bed and go back and work on Foodia at night. And now my oldest is Camila's daughter, which is kind of surreal. And so it's a completely amazing experience to have my daughter read. And like I told them, although, of course, Furia is not an autobiographical novel, there's still so much from my life and from my experience that to read the story is to really take a peek inside my heart. And I'm grateful that they can know this aspect of their mom.
Yeah, what a way to bond. I love that. I don't know, my family has read both my books. Like my sister-in-law and my brother read my books religiously. And they get arcs immediately. But my mom read my first book, and I was like, don't call me, don't text me about it.
Don't tell me, I don't want to know.
I don't want to know. I was like, there's some sex in there, Mom. Don't tell me. I don't need to know what you think about it. Like,
I love that because I write picture books in middle grade, and my mother-in-law, who's a very proper lady, and she has loved all my wish books and my picture books. So when my hard copies came in and I gave her one of Foodia, I said, okay, I just need to give you a little disclaimer. There's sex and there's it's definitely YA.
Yeah.
There are some words. And that was something else. My daughter texted me, oh my gosh, there is this word, and she spelled it. She couldn't believe it. I'm like, well, it's my character. That does not give anybody permission to use these words. Yes, it's a different experience.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Yeah. And my nephew, who is 14 now. He's been reading my first book, and that's just like a whole other thing. So I can't even imagine you for like your teens who are reading these, like, just another story of another teen. It's like, it just must be rewarding for them. I love that for them.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, and it's a wonderful experience that we get to have these super deep conversations, and that they understand what it means to have a story like this out in the world,
right?
Media. So it is very rewarding.
Yeah. Are you planning to write us any more YAs?
Yes. I my short stories that I have out in anthologies. I have one in Take the Mic. And then there are 2 anthologies that I'm in that are coming out the same day. Come On In and Rural Voices. They both come out October 13th, and my stories are YA. And then I'm working on a second YA with Algonquin, and I can't wait to reveal what we're working on and what the story is going to be. But I feel like I'm in my memories. I got stuck in different stages in my life, and I can go back and dive into my middle grade, middle person, and then in my teenage years, and draw from my experiences, and that's why I love to write in these 2 very different, but at the same time not very different age groups.
I mean, they definitely hold hands. It's interesting because I'm sort of transitioning. I'm still writing YA, but I'm sort of transitioning older into like women's fiction, or that's what my next couple of projects are sort of like leaning toward. And it's interesting just to like know how different they are, because these groups are struggling with different things and different ideologies and things like that. But also there's so much hand-holding that happens between these 2 just age brackets. It's amazing to like differences.
Yes, it's sometimes you get to explore similar themes from different perspectives, and you can go deeper depending on what age group you're writing for. But it's amazing that they all come from the same well.
Absolutely. I sometimes dream about writing like a middle grade and then writing a YA about that same character, but just aged up a little bit, and then continuing the story and writing like an adult. Like, that's occasionally a thing I dream about, and then I remember that I'm just like, I just don't have the capacity. It's so much work, to just stay in this world. And but
I'm thinking my oldest son loves movies, and he loves indie movies. And so there is one, I can't remember exactly the title, but I think it's After the Sunrise and then After the Sunset. But they're all they have all been made 10 years from each other, but with the same actors playing the same characters 10 years apart from each other. And Ethan Hawke is one of the main actors. And it's such an experience, Before Sunrise and Before Sunset, yes. And so it is artistically so inspiring and so intriguing. But yes, it's a lot of work and a lot of commitment.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That sounds so amazing, though. I'm absolutely going to write that down so I can check it out later.
It's right there on the comments. Amparo came to you with the titles.
Title right in there. So I hope all of you get on that because it sounds like so much fun.
Yes.
So correct me if I have this wrong, because I think I've heard different things, I think, or I've read different things somewhere along the way, but you at some point as a child did get to play soccer, even if it was just, or football, with your family at least, or?
Yes, we could just play, like on Sundays we'd go on picnics and play with the boys, but my brothers were in very prestigious teams. And they had, I remember my youngest brother could not even ride a bike for the risk of him being injured, and that would have been catastrophic for his career and he was 11 years old. So my dad would not let my sister and me play, not because he was an evil father, but because he didn't want him to get injured, because he would say, oh, since you girls don't really know how to play, you can kick him or push him and he could get hurt. And so yes, so it was super intense in that way. So we didn't really get to play. Now I'm super happy to hear back from my family and friends from Argentina, and I'm still super connected to everybody back home. We chat daily. And again, I'm grateful for technology that allows me to do this.
Yeah.
But my little niece play soccer in recess now at school, and you would never see that when I was growing up. So that gives me a lot of hope for the future, that things are changing.
Yeah, I love that. I just wish for so many like young girls and femmes, like I want them to have access to all these sports. I mean, when I was writing Home and Away, it's not because I had a desire to play football like when I was in high school, but I went to a very strict Baptist Christian high school and it was just not allowed, like absolutely not. But it was never like this all-consuming feeling, but I like always had thoughts about it, and it was always this thing where it's like, you know, my family was very like football oriented, and it was just a big deal, a big sport for them. So I want girls to have access to these like male dominated, sort of like male exclusive arenas. So it's so like rewarding for me personally to read stories like Camila and Foodia, to just like see her thrive. Like that's just really
yes. It was really like writing my own virtual reality. That's what I always say, because I wish also that I had the opportunity. And in my hometown, really, football is like, it's an obsession. It's like more than a religion. I once was talking to a friend who's a male, and he was saying that you can change religion, you can switch your political party, you can even divorce your spouse or your life partner, but you cannot change the team that you're born into. And that is so true. That is how we are. And your team can be ruined if your team has a bad day or a bad game, or when Argentina played the World Cup final against Germany in 2014 and we got scored on minute 87. It was devastating. I don't think we'll ever recover from that heartbreak.
Yeah.
That's how intense it is. But then women have not been even allowed to be referees, coaches, even commentators on TV. Because I remember distinctly hearing men in my family saying, oh, I don't want to hear that woman reporter talk about soccer because what does she know about it? Go wash the dishes. Yeah. And that's a comment that I used to hear all the time. Yeah. And as a little girl, those things stay with you. And I'm the kind of person that if somebody tells me I cannot do something, I want to do it even more.
Do it, yeah.
My kids hear this.
Do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, I'm not like you. I'm absolutely that way. I'm like, if you tell me I can't, I'm going to. So you might as well don't even say it. Like, so do you ever have this like urge now to like get back out on the pitch and sort of
I have played. And for Mother's Day, my kids and my husband gave me my very first pair of soccer cleats that have not let me down. They're mine. And I was signed for a league, but I mean, of course, 2020 happened. So I'm hoping
someday
will pass, and someday I will wear my cleats. But somebody asked on the questions if my children play soccer. All of them have, and I have coached the rec league and the little ones. Last year, I coached the 7-year-olds, and it was amazing because they don't know anything, and at that age you just let them run and experience just being in a little team, boys and girls together. And that has brought me a ton of joy. So I hope to continue doing that.
That would be that sounds so rewarding. I'm a really big fan. If anybody knows me on Twitter, they know that I'm just like, I love babies. I love children, and I love seeing that age, like playing these like first sort of like recreational league type games. My niece, who was 5 at the time, the first like team sport she ever played was football, and her mother's from Mexico, so it's a big deal for her family too. And But here in Seattle, it's like it rains so much. So there's a bunch of little 5-year-olds running around in the rain. And
that's the best. That's the best.
Oh my gosh, I remember them taking their team picture and all the little kids. I looked at my niece and her lips are blue in the picture because it's so cold out.
So cold.
Yeah. So I love it. I love
Those
it.
are amazing memories. When I went to Argentina in November, I had the chance to play with my high school friends. They play in a women's league. And, you know, and that's the thing in Argentina, like people, as they get older, they don't stop playing sports. They still get together with their friends, even if it's not competitive. It is always competitive, but, you know, it's not like professional. And I played with one of my good friends group from the preschool moms from this school, and it was so much fun. It was super thrilling, and then that, because I exercised quite a bit, and I thought I'm in shape. I can keep up with these girls who play every week, and I was happy that I could keep up. And then that night, I got a horrible cramp in my leg, and the next day I was super sore. I'm like, oh my gosh. The body doesn't keep up as much as the mind. You think you can do it? I could do it, but then I feel the consequences. Because it's a very intense sport. You don't understand when you see these professional players on the pitch for 90 minutes, how much it takes, not only physically, but emotionally, when they're in a stadium full of people chanting their name or booing them. And it takes guts to be there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the only real like dedication to sports, I almost put it in quotes, but I have to stop doing that. Ballet is absolutely a sport.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that's really the only like real dedication I've ever had to a sport. And like, I sometimes think about how like last year I danced a lot, but I knew that my body had limits. I was always telling like some of my other dancer friends, and they would say the same thing every time. It's like the mind is willing, but the body is weak. So
yes, that is so true.
The body, you know, you have to. But yeah, I think my only real dedication is to ballet, and even still, it's impossible now. But you know, even still, like if I ever have kids someday, they're all gonna dance ballet. I just don't care. Like, at least once.
No, it is such a foundational art. Yes, my daughter is a ballerina, and she did ballet, and she also did Irish dancing competitively. She went to the Irish World Cup 2 years ago, and she was in the best shape of her life. And yes, so that's amazing. And I see that Kirby is asking about the writing process for she doesn't specify, but I'm gonna assume it's for Foodia. I did take a lot out. So about my writing process for Foodia was very, very complicated because it was the first story that I started. And when I finished the first draft, I decided that I wanted to pursue publication, but I didn't go to school and study writing. I did economics, and English is my second language. So I knew that if I wanted this story to be out in the world, I had to learn my craft. And I joined my very first critique group, which I mentioned in the acknowledgements. We called them the Sharks and Pebbles because of a YouTube video of this author talking to his editor. And when when the editor says, he's talking to this author of the next book, and he says, I want you to write me this, but not that. Or maybe there can be a murder that you have to solve, but not exactly that, but maybe not a murder, maybe these other things. So it just shows you how when an editor is saying that they're looking for something, they can't give you the specific parameters or what they're looking for. They just want to read it and say, oh, this is it. So that video ends like, yes, a shark or maybe a pebble, write about a pebble. So we called ourselves the Shark and Pebbles. And I see that Kirby knows that video. So we met every month, and I went through several drafts of the story, but I feel like I had to grow as a person for my character and this particular story to also grow. So I went back to other manuscripts. I found my love for middle grade fiction, which I adored working on. I wrote a little bit of poetry, and I started. I tried to teach myself all that I could when my kids would go to sleep at night. And then when I was at a workshop here in Salt Lake, I found out about the Vermont College of Fine Arts. And again, that was such an impossible thing for me to do because my children were so small, and my husband he used to do summer cells, so he would go away for whole summers at a time. And I kept thinking, oh my goodness, there's no way that I can go away for 10 days at a time to pursue my education. But I really wanted to do that. And finally, in 2015, I was able to apply and start the MFA program there in Vermont, which you don't need an MFA to be an author.
Right.
But it was a very crucial time in my life that it showed me that I could do super hard things. I discovered things about myself, and not only in my craft, but also in me as a person. And it also showed my family, taught my family that writing for me was so important and that it was my career, what I wanted to do forever. So they would help me do my homework. We would all sit after school to do our little assignments or our readings. And I always, when graduation time arrived, I told that it was everybody's degree because they had all helped me so much. And then I worked on different things, but I kept going back to Foodia because that was the story that I really wanted to tell. And I did a complete rewrite right after I graduated. And then you know how things happen when it's the right time.
Right.
I feel like the story that Foodia was 10 years ago, the seed was there, but it needed to mature. Some stories take time. You can't rush it.
Yeah.
The market wasn't ready for a story about a girl playing soccer. Like when I would do pitch sessions at conferences, I would get wonderful feedback about the writing, but agents would say, "Oh, there's not a market for stories set in another country." I mean, we had a hard time publishing stories about people of color living and growing in our own country, and so when I added the complication of it being said elsewhere. I was told that, there would not be a market for this story. And I'm just happy that the time was right, 2020, with all its messes and complications, that it was the time for Furia to come out this year. So that's how it came out.
Yeah, I love it. Well, yeah, honestly, I think my background is in English and writing. And I sort of got the same like little comments about the kinds of stories I was writing. And there's like in the land of education, there's this like stigma on like a young adult fiction or commercial fiction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it just sort of becomes about writing for you and yeah, just knowing that there's gonna come a time.
Exactly.
Yeah, I am glad you for writing Foodia, for sticking with it, because like
thank you. And it's amazing how it happens, because while I was working on Furia, I would get these ideas for these other stories that I never thought I would have the chops to tackle. But I grew as a writer with the feedback from my peers, mainly when most of us were still unagented and unpublished, just cheering each other on. And it's that love of story and that desire to share it with other people that keeps you going in spite of the market trends or critiques that sometimes can be discouraging. Yeah. So at the end of the day, like you said, you have to do it for the story and for yourself.
Yeah, there it is. So I am just sort of keeping my eye on the clock here. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to jump over to questions.
Let's go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So guys, if you want to ask any questions, get them in there. We'll just dive in. Looks like we already hit a couple of them about your children playing football.
Yes.
I did see one that was in the chat. I think there are some who would like to know if Furia is available in Espanol.
My publisher holds the rights, and I know there are things in the works, but it's out of my control. I'm just throwing this prayer out into the universe that it'll be available in Spanish, and I really hope it'll happen.
Yeah, excellent. I think we all hope that. Let's not go and pressure Algonquin or anything, but I think we all.
No, but people want it. And you know, something super interesting, the woman who does the voice narration of Furia in the audiobook is Sol Madariaga, and she is a fellow Argentine. And I was just thrilled that another Argentine woman had the chance to give Camila her voice, because in the story, there are certain sections when Camila tells you about the chants from the stadium and have the lyrics of the songs, but because Sol grew up in Argentina, she knows the songs, and she sings them in the audio, and it's like you're right there in the stadium chanting with it. And I got goosebumps. And my husband's a huge audiobook reader, and he said, "Oh my goodness, you have to listen to this." So today I started the audiobook, and I just love how it sounds so much like the voice of Camila that I had in my mind while I was working on it. So if you're a fan of audiobooks, go and check it out. I know it's also available in libraries and of course bookstores, and it's an incredible performance.
And there's a link to it actually in chat, guys, if you're wondering, it's there. So there's a question from Dawn who says, would you say writing in English is any more difficult than writing in Spanish?
I think right now, writing in English is my most comfortable place because the language that I've grown up in and that I have lived in for the last 23 years. And although at home we speak Spanish, my husband's from Puerto Rico and our children are fully bilingual, everything else we do is in English, and the media we consume in terms of movies and even music and books. So it is easier. Also because when you're writing in Spanish, the rules are very different in terms of punctuation for dialogue and that are hard to learn when you have not been immersed in writing in Spanish for a while. So I was super fortunate that I was able to do the translation of my picture book, Where Are You From? And it's De Donde Eres in Spanish. And I had to learn how to do punctuation for picture books in Spanish because I had never done it before. So that was very interesting.
Ooh. And speaking of some of your other projects, a question from Nikki who says, you've written books for almost every age group. What draws you to create books for each age?
Like we were saying a little bit earlier, I feel like my spirit got stuck, or my soul got stuck in certain places in my life that I still need to work through, or that I love to revisit. And I love writing about these places of these ages in the middle, when you're about to start school, when you're 6 years old, or when you're going through puberty from anywhere from 8 to 12, like in my middle grade books. And then as you're about to jump into the real world of adults, when you're 17, just on the verge of adulthood, there are some things that all these age groups straddle, shedding this persona that you wear and becoming something more in addition to what you are already. So I think I love writing about these places in the middle, maybe because my family lives in the middle of cultures, in the middle of religions and languages. And so that's the place that I'm most comfortable in and that I like to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm starting to do a little of that myself, just sort of exploring like that in-between area between like modern day, just being a like modern day Black American. And there are so many things that are happening now that happened years and years and years ago, but there are also things from back then that are not happening now. And by that, I just mean some of the cultural practices with regard to like practiced religions and things like that. So it's really fun to explore sort of that like interstitch between the two times. I'm sure it's like really amazing. Yeah, for you to do that and then sort of revisit home. So yeah, I'm sure that's great for you.
Exactly. Yes, and it, you know, as an immigrant myself, and my children coming from families, my husband's Puerto Rican, so they're third culture children, and I've just seen them go through. I've always been, when people ask me where I'm from, I'm kind of like drawing back from my picture book. Even though I'm a U.S. citizen and I've lived in the United States most of my life, in my heart, I feel very much an Argentine. And my husband, same thing. He's completely Puerto Rican. But for my children, when they're asked, sometimes they don't know what to say because they're not firmly in one spot. And so, again, it's been very rewarding to explore this place in the middle, this third culture that they form for themselves, and how the language evolves, even English and Spanish, how they put things together and how their mind works. So it's been fascinating to write from that perspective.
Amazing, just very different, I'm sure, and also, I mean, obviously very, very much the same. So yeah, that is, wow. Another question I had on here, you know what, no, it's not on here. I'm like confusing the audience questions with my own personal questions.
Well, another question that has been voted, and it's about what was the most surprising part of writing this book. And maybe the most surprising aspect has been one big character in the story is Camila's father, who's very domineering, and he's kind of like the representation of the whole society where she grows up and where she lives. And I didn't mention this when I was talking about the book at the beginning, but Camila lives in a place where, unfortunately, there's a lot of violence against women, and that gets it's exemplified when women don't have the same rights to even play a sport that they love, right? But she's trying to become this professional futbolera, all with the background of the Ni Una Menos movement that started in South America in 2015 and has spread all over the world. And it started a little bit earlier than the Me Too movement, but they're very similar. And so I wanted to show in Foodia how feminism can be so polarizing, even from a woman's perspective. And I wanted to show how different generations dealt, like her mom's generation, although the mother is not an old woman, she's even in the book, she's even younger than I am in real life, but she has very outdated ideas that are not her own. These are ideas that have been passed to her from generation to generation. And those are the ones that Camila is trying to break through. So when I started writing Furia, I thought that the story was a lot to do with Camila's relationship with her father and how that story progressed. But then as I went revision after revision, I realized that it was about Camila's relationship with her mother, how she understood that if her mom had been, at the beginning, Camila doesn't want to be like her mom at all. And she's very critical of her mother's choices. But then as the story progresses, she understands that her mom was dealt with very difficult cards in her life. And that maybe if Camila had been in the same situation, she might have made the same choices that are not very different as she wanted to be. So that was very powerful because it also became a redemption story for the mother who never had any of the chances that Camila has to get an education, to study English, to even play. Even if she plays in secret, she gets to play. There is a league. There is a coach that becomes her mentor and her protector. And the mom did not have all of those things. So in a way, Camila's journey also helps not only herself, but the women around her. And and like she says, the women that came before her, even that she never got to know, but live inside her. Mm-hmm. And so that was a very surprising and rewarding part of the writing journey, how the story is about strong women supporting each other at the end of the day. And even in Camila's team, and that's why I loved writing about soccer, because she had a very tight-knit network in her teammates. Mm-hmm. And they're not competing against each other for a boy's attention. Mm-hmm. They're trying. In soccer, sometimes you see teams that there is the one star, and yes, they can have good results, but they're not lasting results. Mm-hmm. The best results are when a team is playing coherent and everybody has their own place in that team, and they do their job and they support each other. Yeah. So I wanted to show that not only on the pitch, but outside the pitch, Camila has this amazing network of friends and girls who are cheering her, although they have different goals in their lives. And that was what a long answer, but but that was the most rewarding and surprising part of the process. I absolutely loved it. And I have I've been blessed with amazing friends and colleagues and women of color who supported me in this career and this journey that has been super hard. And they're the ones checking on me. Yeah. Even in this amazing thing that happened to me with Reese Witherspoon, they know even good emotions can be overwhelming. And they're the ones checking up on me. Are you okay? And or they're showing up for my events online. And I appreciate that strength, because we cannot do this alone.
Right. I love that. You were saying something about, everybody has their part to play on her team. And it's just, I mean, that's so beautiful, I think. It's ballet is like that too. I mean, everybody has their part. They're all doing this one performance. And of course there's like backstage politics of who upstaged who, and that's just dancing.
Or the solo.
We have very ridiculous egos, but I mean, it's that was really beautiful. Just everybody has their part to play, and
even in sports, you see the one player like tennis. There is a whole team behind the tennis player, and that's something that I've been thinking about today. I mean, it's my name on the front of the cover of this book. Mm-hmm. But oh my goodness, it does take a village to create a book and send it out into the world. And also something that I keep going back to, because it's so important to support creators and to have these stories out in the world. But the most important link that sometimes we're missing is getting the books in the hands of the readers that are supposed to get them. It always, oh my goodness, it breaks my heart when I go to a bookstore or a library and in a small town in Utah, and the teachers don't know that Meg Medina won the Newbery Medal for Mercy Suarez, or they don't know about the amazing book or new kid winning the Newbery this year, or this also, even if they're not award winners, if they don't know about the stories that are coming out, and they keep recommending all classics just because it's comfortable and that's what they know. What's the good in having the stories out in the world if children are not gonna get them in their hands? So that's something that I'm very passionate about, for kids to get to read them and meet these characters, which is my ultimate goal at the end of the day.
Yeah, it sounds like such a big goal, and it really is in terms of importance, but it really starts, like you said, at the ground level, and these little sort of like hole-in-the-wall mom and pop bookshops, that's really where it starts. It starts on a level where kids do have access, which is why my sister-in-law likes to play this game where she goes around to libraries around the state and requests not just my book, but the books of other authors of color, especially queer authors of color. She'll have a whole list that I did not put to her, but she's taking the time, and it's just, that's really where it starts, just on the ground level and with the small tasks. So
exactly. I'm always that annoying mom and aunt and friend who gives books for presents. But I mean, growing up at home, I have already mentioned, we didn't have a lot of resources. My parents gave us everything they could, but for a while we just had 2 books in our house, and they were the Bible and a dictionary, and that's what I read. Because I read the dictionary. That's why I'm so obsessive with words.
Yeah.
And so I remember going sometimes to the supermarket, and you have these mass-produced books, and I just begging my mom for a copy. And my friends in high school, they knew how passionate I was about books, and they would give me books for my birthday, and that was always the best present. So now I paid forward, and I know that that the stories, for example, that changed my life are stories that have never been an international bestseller, and they have not been heavily promoted, but they were the stories that were right for me, and that even though Foodia is very different from those books I read when I grew up, they made me into the person that I am today and the author that I am today, and I'll forever be grateful. So, like Camila gives homage to her, the ancestors in her family, these literary giants that made me into the reader that I am today and the author that I am today. I hope that they're honored by the words in Foodia as well.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I hope so too, because just the words, like if it wasn't already obvious from reading Furia, like hearing you speak is just like, I want to write some of these things down and make art out of the quotes or something,
You're awesome.
Inspirational stuff. You have a lot to offer, and it's
a lot of thoughts. My kids don't pay attention to me, so that's why I write.
I love it.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, it does look like we're kind of running down on time, so I personally just want to say again, thank you. I can't get my hands on enough books about Black and brown girls just really going for it. So anytime another one gets out there, I'm just like perpetually in just so much thanks. So thank you to you.
Thank you also for what you do and for being here tonight. This has been the world. And again, I said it off camera, but I wish we were in person. And thank you for this connection. It's been wonderful.
My pleasure.
Yes, thank you both so much for being here. Thank you, Candice, for moderating our conversation. Thank you, Yamile, so much. Sorry I got booted from the event here, but it looks like everything went well. You guys had a great discussion.
Yeah.
I've been following along in the comments and in the Q&A and everything. Big shout out to our friend Kirby Larson for being so active in the comments and questions as well. Yes, we love Kirby. Thank you so much. I am going to remind you once again, just as Yamile just said, books do make the best present, and remind you to please click on this link right below and buy your copy of Furia with us at thirdplacebooks.com. I am going to be logging off and ending this event, but I will give our authors the final word here before we go.
Yeah, just all of you, first of all, thank you for tuning in, because I feel like it's really, really important to show support for not just the authors, but the stories. So yeah, thank all of you for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. And I just read a comment that says that it's important to get these books in the hands of the readers who need them, and even those who think they need them. Because I feel that's when the magic happens, when a story surprises you. And of course, these stories that I write, are not only for brown girls who love soccer. Mm-hmm. I hope that they're shared widely, because it can offer you to speak into somebody's inner world, and that can change yours. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. And if you want to connect with me online, look me up on my website. It's just my name, YamileSaiedMéndez.com, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Well, thank you again. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.